What is up, guys? We're back with another build video. Today we're going to be building a kitchen knife for my mom for her birthday. I cheated a little bit. I went ahead and forged this out. This is a Damascus petty knife. I forged it from an end cut of Damascus I had laying around, so I have no idea what this pattern is going to look like. So stick around and find out. It'll be a surprise for you, just like it will be for me. But we're gonna be grinding this, heat treating it, putting a handle on it, and then maybe we'll give it to her, see what she thinks. What's up, guys? I'm sorry it's been so long. I've been busy in the shop making knives that I haven't necessarily been able to record for the YouTube. So if you want to see the stuff that I make, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok, both just Stouts Forge. I look forward to seeing you there. But today, we're getting started on this knife for my mom. It's going to be a kitchen knife. It's going to be a little bit smaller than a full-size chef, but maybe a little bit bigger than what people usually think of when they think of a petty knife. I think it'll be a good size for her. It's a similar size to her favorite knife that she has in the kitchen already. So we're just rough grinding right now. This is straight off of the forge. We haven't done anything to it yet. No thermocycling, no heat treat, so it's still soft, which means it's easy to grind, relatively speaking. My goal here is to do about 60-70% of the grinding before the heat treat. That way it's a little bit easier on the belts. I don't have to worry about overheating it, but I'm not grinding it so thin that it's going to be super prone to warping and cracking when we actually go through the heat treat. You might have noticed I'm wearing shorts in this video, and that's because we recorded the beginning of this back when it was still warm out. Now it's late November and it's freezing, and I'm bundling up in the shop, so actually editing this has me kind of sad because I wish it was still warm. Once we've got it to a place we're happy on the rough grind, it's time to take it to the forge for normalization and the quench. I'm gonna let Shorts Me explain normalizing. First up, we're gonna be normalizing the blade. After forging it into a knife shape, there's a lot of stress in the steel, and normalizing it will reduce that stress, making for a stronger blade. Basically, we're getting the blade up just above critical temperature and then letting it cool slowly in the air. All right, it's time for round two. This time we're shooting for just below critical temperature. I've done this enough times that I can do it by eye based on the color of the steel, but if you don't have that confidence yet, you can use like a thermometer gun or a thermocouple in your forge to regulate the temperature. Any of that works. All right, time to quench. Now we hurry up and wait. The quench gets it nice and hard, but right after this, we're gonna put the blade into the toaster oven, 400 degrees, 2 cycles at 2 hours. Right, that'll soften it up a little bit, bring it back. Unfortunately, we didn't get any clips of that, so that's why I'm telling you now. All right, we're out of the heat treat. The blade is ready to be ground and have a handle on it. But the first order of business is I need to clean up the flat areas where there's still a little bit of forge texture. My goal when I forged this was to have a little bit of a forged finish on the flats around the handle transition, but my forging control just isn't quite there yet, so we're gonna go for a clean finish on this one. Let's go get to work. In order to clean up the flats, I've got the blade attached to a welding magnet that I can then just stick into the belt. This way my fingers aren't in any danger of getting sanded off, which sounds unpleasant, but it's more common than you might think. All right, got my Nordic Edge file guide. We're gonna put it on here and tighten it up to get the shoulders how I want them. I'm going for kind of an angled thing, which makes my life a little bit more difficult on the grinder, but I think it's a cool look, so we're gonna do it anyway. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but I've got a Purdue hoodie on in these clips. I did go to Purdue. I went to study engineering. I realized very quickly after I got there that I had no interest in being an engineer. So after 2 years, I dropped out, moved back home, started making knives. Now here we are. I hope one day that I can show people that you can do cool stuff without a degree. So if you're doing cool stuff without a degree, I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment down below. So we're most of the way there. Unfortunately, because of the angle and because of the depth of the platen, it's really hard to get that corner. So we're gonna do that by hand with just files. Now it's not exactly glamorous, but this handwork is what really separates the boys from the men. And while I can do the handwork, my tools stink. So if anybody has any recommendations for files, please drop them in the comments, because I need some new files. This file did basically nothing, so I switched to a diamond file, which you're really not supposed to use with the file guide because it can scratch up the carbide faces, but that other file was just not doing anything. Finally, I got it to a point where I'm happy with it, with that diamond file and this one other one. So it's time to unclamp it and then get to work finishing up the grinding.
Oh. 5 minutes later.
Oh yeah, look at that. So there's still a couple of light spots. That's decarb, but I've got enough thickness on the edge that I'll end up grinding through that. What is up, Stout Nation? Welcome back. It's part 2 of my mom's birthday gift knife build video. Say that 10 times fast. Today we're working on the handle. Right now, as you can see, I'm drawing it up. But we're going to be selecting materials. We're going to be drilling some slots. We're going to be doing some glue ups. Hope you enjoy. All right, so the blade is in the oven tempering. Right now I'm working on designing the handle and the final profile and figuring out what materials I want to use. This is the handle design that I've settled on. I traced the blade and then did the handle and then did the handle again just because it looked a little messy with the tang lines in there and stuff. So this is what it's going to be. Now I just have to decide on materials. And this is kind of the pile that I'm picking from. My thoughts are either I do a purple heart for the bolster, right, for this top section, and then this, which is spalted beech, maybe beech, maybe maple. I'm honestly not 100% sure, but do that as the main handle with a spacer, probably this, I think this is aluminum. I could do that, or if we see the pattern and we decide that this is going to be too much, I could just go blackwood, which is a little bit more understated, but I think it would still look good. Or what I could do is I've got this buffalo horn that I could do the buffalo horn on the bolster, and then I've got this piece of stabilized, I think it's curly maple with a little bit of spalting in it, that I think that would be a cool combo. Whoopsie.
Nice.
I think that would be a cool combo as well. So I've got options, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I think we've come to a decision. We put some oil on these woods to see a little bit closer to what they'll look like when they're finished. And I think we've decided that this is going to be a little bit too chaotic for the Damascus that we're doing. So I think we're going to go with this and the buffalo horn for the bolster. And I think we're just gonna keep it simple and do a single layer aluminum spacer. We could still decide to sandwich it with like a black or a white G10, probably the white if we were going to. But I think we're just gonna keep it simple on this one. Okay, so we're about to start on the bolster, which is this part here. What I'm gonna do is because I have it at an angle where it meets, we can't cut that and then drill, because then the slot won't be at the same angle as the tang. Does that make sense? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut basically a rectangle that is perpendicular to the slot, and then we're gonna drill the slot square to the piece, right? And then we're gonna cut down the angles. Does that make sense? If not, you'll see it in a minute. Now, if it looks like I'm rushing through shaping this buffalo horn bolster, that's because I am. There's two reasons for that. The first reason, it kind of stinks to high hip. The second reason is something I learned way back in engineering school, and that's that there's no point in being more precise than your next worst step. In this case, I fully expect the drill bit to wander when we go to drill the slot, so there's no point trying to get it parallel and square now. So, now we're marking the slot with my new fancy dial calipers. I'm gonna take whatever's half of this. We mark the center line. Hey, that was pretty good. And then let's see, we need something like 12 mil. I don't know if you can see those marks, but they're there. Unfortunately, doing this with a drill press, there's always going to be a little bit of slop. This drill press is not very big, not very strong. I think it bows a little bit when I put too much pressure on it. But that's okay, because we're using an undersized drill bit, and we're going to sneak up on the real size of files. Trying to do nice hidden tang fit-ups is frankly infuriating a lot of the time. And I think it's one of my biggest weaknesses as a knife maker. It's certainly something I want to get better at. They say money doesn't solve problems, but it would buy me a milling machine. Just saying. Alright, so we got the 4 holes drilled. They look pretty good on this side. They look not quite as good on this side, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Now we're going to connect them up with the drill bit the best we can, and then we're going to dial it in with files. All right, that looks pretty good. You can see it's a little bit wobbly, but that's okay. We're gonna fix that up with the files. And we used an undersized drill bit for the size of the tang for that specific reason. But already even it is starting to get in there, so we're in a good spot. What we're gonna do first though, now that the slot is roughed in, is we're gonna cut it to the angle that I want. So I'm just gonna trace my shoulders there and then connect that line. We're gonna make that cut and flatten, and then we're gonna do the same cut down at the bottom. Before you guys go rushing to the comments to tell me, Jacob, your bandsaw sounds terrible. I get it, I know, I don't wanna hear it. This is a dull blade that I literally can't switch off because the knob to loosen it completely broke off the bandsaw. Thankfully, I'm getting a new one tomorrow. So, What we're doing now is a tip that I learned from Mastersmith Josh Fisher at the New England School of Metalwork. And he uses it for guards, but I'm applying it for bolster here. Revolutionary, I know. Which is basically, you clamp your bolster or your guard or whatever in your file guide, and then you file it flat, and then bam, it's flat and square, and then you put it on the other side at the distance that you want from the side that's already flat, and then you have a perfectly even and flat slot for your tang. So that's what we're doing. Now it's a lot of this. Isn't this exciting? If anybody has any recommendations for good files, drop them in the comments. All my files are kind of janky. Thanks. All right, so I'm calling it good on the first side of filing. We still gotta go back in and do the other side, but let's just check and see how we're doing. Goes up about halfway, pretty tight, no huge gaps. I mean, there is on the front and the back, but that's because the tang tapers down, so that's fine. And even if there are a little bit of a gap, even if there is a little bit of a gap, we can use black epoxy to kind of fill it in a little bit. Don't tell my mom. But yeah, let's go work on the other side. What's up, guys? It's day 3. I just finished, filing the slot for the tang on this bolster here. Let's see how well it fits. Oh, we're getting real close. Getting real close. All right, a little more filing, I guess. All right, check this out. I'm like 99% of the way there. And honestly, a tap from a mallet might get it up there perfectly. But I mean, look at that. There's no gaps. No gap. This is why I'm one of America's top young rising knife makers. All right, next up, we're gonna do the spacer. This goes in between the bolster and the handle block. But because right now my metal bandsaw is broken, we are going to be using a poor man's metal bandsaw, AKA an angle grinder. It's like a bandsaw, only it's actively trying to unalive me. All right, we're drilling the slot. Oh goody, you get to watch me struggle some more. I'm starting to think my editor gets off on making me look like I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, bad idea, don't do this at home. All right, good enough on the drilling. Am I a little bit askew? Yeah, but it's fine because nobody's gonna see it. Less of a need to sneak up on it, you know?
Yeah, better.
All right, so we've got a slot now in our spacer. There's still some gunk from the drill, but we'll take care of that in a minute. But our hole is big enough, maybe even a little too big, but it's fine because it's gonna get glued in and nobody's gonna see it. So the bolster's done. The spacer's 90% done. Now we're moving on to the handle block. We got to decide which side of this we want to drill into and which faces we want where. There's some gray in here that I don't know if it's on the surface or if it penetrates. So we're gonna go to the belts, sand this back a little bit and see if we can't get to more of this purple color. If not, it's fine because we can just use this as the top. So if you look here, we ground into this a 1/16 of an inch or something, and there's still a lot of gray. So we're gonna use that side. That's a little bit nicer. Well, so there's a crack here that we have to avoid. So basically we're just gonna offset the slot so that you treat the crack as the edge of the wood, and I think we'll be okay. All right, we've got the slot marked and we've got the general shape outlined. I'm gonna go ahead and chop that on the chop saw just to make it easier to fit in the drill press. And then we're gonna go ahead and get drilling that slot. By the time I'm done with this handle, this shop is gonna look like we got hit by the Pixie Sticks truck. Okay, now we're making progress in the right direction. That's good. Look at that, pink dust. All right, so we're up to the green, which means we can start on the next hole. That one ended up doing a lot of drifting, both backwards and forwards, so we're only gonna need 2 holes here. But that's just fine. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, that was a big mistake. Big mistake. I started it too close to the existing hole and it drifted right in there. So, have I told you how much I hate drilling slots? Luckily, I'm a genius. I have a little bit of room to play with on the bottom, so I could just shave off the top until we're back to flat in that spot. You know what I'm saying? The bit wandered into the other hole, and that's as far in as I can get it. Which, we've got a long bolster, so it's not like the end of the world. But I definitely have a ways to go, and I'm not looking forward to it. All right, my patience has worn thin, so we're gonna burn the tang in. It's like 90% of the way there. Just remember, we've got that big fat bolster. Here we go. That blue rag there is soaked in water, and that's to prevent the blade from heating up too much while I'm doing this burning. I bet that's gonna do it. Let's cool this off.
It stinks in here.
Yeah. That's
Smells like a Bath and Body Works.
I mean, that's what happens when, well, that's very charitable, actually. Doing a burn-in on stabilized wood can sometimes be a little bit odorous. Should I do it? Should I touch it? Should I touch it?
You're gonna yell.
Touch it?
You're gonna yell, but it's not gonna actually burn you.
Do it. Ah!
That was just loud.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see how close we are with the bolster and the spacer.
We can also add more spacer if need be. Do a sandwich.
I guess we could. I'd rather not. Let's see. No spacer. Oh yeah, we're there. We got it. Now what we have to do, we got to clean this up so that it's not all, so it's flat. We have to flatten this basically. And then we have to see how well these all fit together. The angles should line up. I did math, although I am a college dropout. I'll flatten this a little bit because it's still got saw lines on it. But after that, I think we're ready to glue the handle together and bed the tang in epoxy. Now, I've had extremely mixed results in bedding my tangs with epoxies that usually end up in just accidentally gluing the whole thing together. And I don't want that to happen. So, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna be very careful. Here I'm just dremeling out the hole on the spacer. The drill bit that I had used was a little bit dull, and so it had created some deformation that was making the pieces not sit flat together. But this was an easy way to fix it up. Burning it in, worked like a charm, if a little stinky. So now everything goes together, goes where it needs to be. The only problem is there's still little gaps. I don't know if you can tell it all, but I can see it when I hold it up to the light. There's little gaps. So what I think that means is, well, A, this needs to be flattened because it's still got saw marks. This, I think I could also stand to flatten a little bit. So we're gonna go do those. I'm only able to do this with any precision because I know that my platen is flat. If you haven't seen my review video of the RD Knives Carbide Flat Platen, you should go check it out. My old platen, I would not have been able to do this because it would have just given me lumps and gaps and it would have been a bad time. All right, we're 99.9% of the way there on the fit up. Everything looks good. There's a little bit of a gap maybe between the spacer and the bolster, but guess what? The bolster's black. So is our epoxy. Is it cheating? Who can say for sure? But it's what we're gonna do. Basically, I'm going to load up all these with epoxy. I'm gonna load up the tang with this synthetic grease so that it doesn't bond to the handle material. I'm gonna stick it all together. I'm gonna take it to clamp town. And then before the epoxy cures all the way, we're gonna take this out. The epoxy in the handle is strong enough at that point to hold its shape, but not so strong that it won't let me take the blade out. This is all theoretical, of course. It could go horribly wrong. And I'm gonna clamp the heck out of it so that hopefully it fills those gaps in there. So let's get to it. I'm lubing up my tang here. So the last time I tried to bed a tang in epoxy, I waited too long and I couldn't get the blade out, and I had to forcefully remove the blade from the handle, tragically sacrificing all my hard work getting the handle fit up. So I'm hoping to not do that a second time because that would stink. Now, if I did a good job, then I won't need that much. But I'm not counting on it. That shouldn't be enough. Oh, do you want to run over in the back corner there and get me gloves? I want to get a good mix here because if it's not fully mixed, it won't cure right. The problem is I wish this wasn't quite so thick. And I could dilute it with acetone. That's what I do for my mosaic pins, but it messes with the bonding ability a little bit. Bedding the tang isn't strictly necessary on every knife. If you have a mono steel knife where the ricasso and the spine don't flow into the handle, you can get away with just finishing your blade and finishing your handle separately, gluing them up and calling it a day. But because the design of this knife, the spine flows into the back of the handle and the choil flows into the front of the handle, so I want to be able to sand the handle in relation to the blade like that. Does that make sense? And then the other part is it's Damascus. So if I glue it up, I can't re-etch it because the acid will mess with the handle material. So I need to be able to do all the shaping and then take the blade out in order to etch it on its own.
Five minutes later.
All right, I know I said 8 minutes. It's been like 4, but I'm getting scared because it's looking pretty gummy, which is what we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and unclamp. And we're gonna see if we can get this out. No! No! It's not fair! But not so strong that we're not so strong out. Not so salt. Why does this happen to me? Okay, oh my gosh. All right. I just about died, but it's fine because it came off. This is good. I think. I think this is good. I think this is good. Okay. Let's just see if it goes right on up in there. Fits real nice and good.
Would have laughed so hard if it just got permanently stuck in that moment.
I would have cried genuinely, probably. So, is it ready? Does this have any play? Not really. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna load up with another round of lube. And I'm gonna put it back in for a few minutes.
You should maybe clean it up with acetone.
That's what I'm doing. I'm done with this quick set epoxy stuff. No more. It's burned me too many times. Thanks. Hey, I mean, that'll make for good content at least.
Yeah, okay, I can't get it.
I'll do it in a second. All right, now Lube Central.
Should you like spray some WD-40 up in there?
Nah. This stuff is better than WD-40.
Yeah, but then you can get it all up in the cracks.
I don't want to get it in there. Now back in just for alignment as everything sets up. I'm gonna come check it again in like 3 minutes. But I think I'm good at this point. I mean, it's a good fit, which is what you want. You don't want it to be easy to come out. I think I'm safe. I think I'm safe to leave it. All right, our, what did we say, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, however long, has passed, and it did come off again, so I think we're in the clear. I don't think this needs more clamping pressure, so I'm just gonna let it sit while it finishes curing. And then in the meantime, we're gonna do a little bit more blade grinding on the grinder and then handstand. Hey guys, Jacob here. We're back with part 3 of my mom's birthday knife build video. Right now, we're grinding the handle. If you remember from the end of part 2, we got the tang bedded and we got it kind of all blocky, but now it's time to actually shape the handle how we want it. Alright, so that's the handle shape roughed in. In talking to my mom, she likes a knife with a thinner handle, so this is going to get taken in quite a bit still. It's going to flare out a little bit up here for kind of the palm swell. But first I'm going to mark some lines as a reference of where I want to grind to, so let's go do that. So this is the design we're going for. It's going to have a facet along the back here, and then it's going to be rounded over in the front. While I draw some layout lines for this handle, I figure I'll tell the story of how I got into knife making, because I haven't told that story on the channel yet. After I dropped out of college my junior year, I was living at home and not really doing much of anything. I was applying to restaurants and coffee shops and stuff and not really hearing back anywhere. And I mentioned to a friend of mine that I was looking for a job, and so he introduced me to his old boss, who had just bought a knife brand but didn't have anybody to do the production. My now boss basically had this whole forge set up with nobody working in it, and I thought it sounded interesting. I was willing to learn how to do the stuff, so I stuck around. I got 1 day of training from a person who didn't really know what she was doing. So it was a lot of YouTube and podcasts and that sort of thing to try to figure out what the heck was going on. My boss knew essentially nothing about knife making, but he was super supportive. He bought basically all of the crappy first knives that I made, which may not sound like much, but think of it this way. If he had waited to start paying me until I got good at making knives, I never would have gotten good at making knives. That was almost 2 years ago now. I still work for that same guy doing production, but he's super gracious about letting me do personal projects like this knife in his forge with his materials, and so I could not be more grateful to my boss. Alright, so that's all my rough reference points. So let's get back to it. This time I'm going to use a fresh 120, I think, because that old 36 was kind of burning the wood a little bit, so I want to try to avoid that. But a fresh 120 will still be plenty aggressive to do what I want to do. So let's get to it. I just love handle shaping like this. I love having the lines marked because it makes it super easy. You just grind to the line and then you're done. But this step where the handle goes from a big chunky block to something that's honestly pretty close to what the final shape is going to look like is super satisfying to me. That's really coming together. I got to take this back edge in a little bit so that it's flush with the spine. But other than that, I'm really happy with that shape. I think that's really nice. And it feels good in the hand. All right, so we're done on 120 grit. Next up, we're gonna go to 400. All right, so that's what I like to call a test buff. I'm not done sanding by any means, but by buffing it, you can see where there are still scratches that need to come out. I mean, clearly there's still facets and stuff I need to blend, but just doing the buff helps a little bit with knowing what I need to do. So let's do some sanding. What's up, Stout Nation? Welcome back. This is part 3, I think. Today we're going to be working on the blade. The handle at this point is complete, but the blade still looks like dookie. If we get a little bit closer here, you can see there are some rust spots that I need to clean off. There's a couple of decarb spots that I need to grind through, and we're still way thick at the edge, so we need to thin that down. So we're gonna do that on the belts, and then we're gonna clean up with hand sanding and go to the etch so that it looks pretty. Let's go. Was that another intro? Maybe. Am I going to apologize for it? No, I'm not. Making multi-part videos is hard, guys. My goal here, like I said, is just to thin down and clean up the blade. We've got to get through those rust spots in the decarb, and we've got to get it thinner at the edge. Using the top of the belt like this is great to give the blade a convex geometry, where it's got a little bit of a curve. It's not strictly a flat grind, and that helps with food release. Here on the wheel, I'm just rounding over the spine, which helps with the comfort when you're holding it in your hand, especially if you like to use a pinch grip. Okay, it looks a lot shinier now. I just finished on the 120 belt. We're gonna do a test etch and see if we got through the decarb. And if we did, then we can move up in the grits. Otherwise, we're gonna have to spend a little more time on the 120. So we'll see what happens. Let's see what we're looking at. Oh yeah, look at that. Still maybe just a hint of decarb right in the middle there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's not bad. And then we're through all the rust on this side. Oh, that looks awesome. That's so sick. All right, well, let's go get this cleaned off. I'm gonna do just a little bit more 120 for those decarb spots, and then we're gonna start moving up the grits. Getting through decarb on a Damascus blade is tricky because there's no way to check your work as you're grinding. You have to test etch. It's one of those little quirks. All right, we're done on the belts. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean this up with a Dremel. It's not like it's disgusting right now, but it needs some cleaning up. And then we're gonna hand sand the blade. Because we took it all the way to 400 on the belts, I think we're just gonna start with 600 and call it good and then go into the action. So let's do it. Dremels are bad. That's the official stance of Stouts Forge. But until I get a real rotary tool, I will continue using my Dremel. Just know that I'm not happy about it. I'm gonna call that good.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll hit it with the sandpaper too. But it's time to hand sand the blade. It sucks, but you gotta do it, especially for Damascus. If you try to etch a belt finish Damascus blade, it's just not gonna look very good. All right, I think that's gonna be it. Yeah, that's pretty good to me. What do you think? Looking pretty shiny, huh? I'm gonna hit the spine with the 600, and then I'm gonna hit it all in the buffer, and then it'll be time for the etch. Are you excited yet? most exciting part.
Well, I'll let you know, I'm zoomed in really close in your face.
Nice. While you're zoomed in, I'll do a little knowledge drop.
Not on your face.
Oh, okay. Well,
Back on your face.
Okay. We're gonna do a little knowledge drop. Whether you're on my face or you're not on my face, it doesn't matter because they can still hear me. Right now, we're about 90% of the way done with this knife, but the old adage goes that the last 10% of the knife takes 90% of the time. And unfortunately, it's true. I'm just kidding. I don't mean that we're gonna be here for 9 more days. Just kind of feels like that. But we're actually really close. With the hand sanding done, it's time to get ready for the final etch. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just cleaning off the blade because if there's any kind of oil or contaminants, then the etch will be uneven and we don't want that. It turns out the etch is still uneven anyway, but not because we didn't clean it. Look at that. That's pretty sick, huh?
Yeah.
A couple of streaks, but that's why we clean it and we do it again. Right now, we're just etching for depth in diluted ferric chloride. We're doing multiple rounds with cleaning off in between with 2000 grit sandpaper. That's a tip I learned from Josh Fisher. Great guy, check him out. All right, back in the acid. There we go. All right, we've got some very, very disgustingly strong instant coffee. We're gonna take the blade out of the acid and put it in the coffee. That should theoretically blacken up the parts that we want black. So here it is. I'm gonna rinse it and I'm gonna go straight into the coffee. And we're gonna leave it in the coffee for something like 6 hours. And then we're gonna come back and take it out and see what we think. Boom. What's up? We're back. It's been a few hours. We're gonna check the blade. If it looks good, then we're in business. If it looks bad, I might cry. So let's go see how it did in the coffee. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, nice and dark. I gotta do some rinsing, but oh, that side is not as good. Not as good. Let's see what we get when we rinse. Boy, that... The 15 and 20 really darkened up on some of that, which probably means we left it in too long. Other than that, I'm happy with it, but we are gonna have to clean it off and do it again. But that will be a project for another day because it's late and I wanna go to bed. We'll be back. I'm gonna see if we can fix it with a little bit of rinsing and hand sanding. Theoretically, the dark stuff is on a lower level than the light stuff, so we might be able to just sand off the black on the part that's supposed to be light, but we'll see what happens. We're probably just gonna have to etch again.
Getting better.
It's like almost what I want, but I'm taking off in the dark areas too. So we're gonna have to do coffee again, no matter what. All right, guys, it's day, who even knows at this point. We've blown past my mom's birthday, but it's fine. It'll be a late gift, whatever. It's my camera guy's fault because I can only work when he's here. We're putting this in the coffee to try to get that etch how we want it. I mean, if we look at it right now, it looks good, but we can get those dark areas darker. I just know it. So we're gonna put it in the coffee. We're gonna check it every hour, hour and a half until it's as black as I want. And then we gotta glue it up. In the meantime, we're gonna work on a sheath so that it's not clunking around in the knife drawer. Let's go ahead and get it in there and see how it goes. All right, we just got back. Let's see how we did. Oh yeah, all right. It's ready. We're gonna go air compressor it off and then get ready to glue up.
I think it's fine. I think it landed on the edge, actually.
All right. I'm gonna cover it in WD-40, let it sit overnight to lock in the oxides. And then it'll be time to glue up. After an overnight soak in the WD-40 to let those oxides lock in, it's time to get ready for the glue up. First though, there's this one last step, which is to put some notches into the tang. That way the epoxy will have somewhere to fill in and really lock that blade in there. Now I know in the last video I said I was done with this quick cure epoxy, and I am, but I had some left, and so we're gonna use it for the glue up here. Doing the glue up isn't necessarily hard, it can just be a little bit tricky. You have to make an effort not to get epoxy everywhere, which can happen and I have done. If this epoxy was a little bit thinner, it would make my life easier, but that's what I get. And I'm gonna load up the tang with this stuff too, because I don't want any bubbles or voids or anything like that. I want it solidly filled and never coming out. As I put that blade in there, I'm trying to keep it as clean as I can with the paper towel. It's not going to be perfect, but once it's all clamped up, we'll go back in and do some cleanup. Now the clamp situation here is a little bit janky, but I've found that it's the best way to clamp up a blade when you're worried about the tip, right? I don't want to rub the Damascus finish off the tip, I don't want to break the tip, I don't want to bend the tip, any of which could happen depending on how you clamp. There it is, all its finished flooring. Look at that. I'm super happy with how this came out. I think it's an awesome looking knife. I think my mom's gonna love it. Let's see how sharp I got it. About that. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the bonus episode of my mom's birthday knife build series, where we're going to be making a leather sheath. This is literally the first sheath I've ever made, so you're going to be figuring it out along with me. Let's go.
Alright. We've got this. It's a pretty good approximation of the blade that we're using. This is what we're going to make the bulk of the sheath out of because it matches the handle better than anything else I have. And then we're gonna use this thicker stuff for the welt. That's the part that sits in the sandwich to stop the blade from cutting the thread. For this sheath, we're gonna be doing a sandwich style. So there's two styles of sheaths. There's taco style and there's sandwich style. Taco style, you would cut one big piece that fits both halves and then fold it over. Sandwich style, we're gonna be cutting two pieces and then sewing them together. Does that make sense? And basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna trace it once facing this way. I'm gonna flip it, give a little bit of an allowance. Trace it this way. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have it just butt against the top of the handle, basically. Does that make sense?
Now that the blade is traced, we have to enlarge that shape so that the leather has enough real estate for the stitching. I'm shooting for about 1/4 of an inch here, but it's not an exact science.
So I have to decide what I want to do down here at the heel. I think I'm just going to keep tracing rather than just go all the way down. There. And just kind of curve it down. Then we do the same thing on the other side.
Like I said in the intro, I have no leatherworking experience whatsoever. So if anybody has any channels or tutorials that they have liked or have learned things from, drop them in the comments down below. I'd love to check out some more information.
Now we cut with a knife that I made. Okay, so we got these two cut out. The next thing we have to do is we have to get that thicker leather out and cut just this outline, basically, to be the welt.
I really wish that I could give you guys some information on what these leathers are that I'm using, but honestly, I don't know. They were in this shop before I started working here, and they'll probably be here after I leave.
All right, you see the vision?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do this a little bit long down here so that we can grind it down to match. All right, ready? So we have our welt. We have our two sandwich pieces. Oh, look how good that fits. Oh, I'm a genius. And then that will go on top. So the next thing we have to do, we have to grind this to match the distal taper of the knife blade so that it's a little bit thinner up here and so that it's a little bit thinner down at the edge. I think we grind, I have to do some research, but I think we grind this top layer off and then contact cement it in and then punch our holes, do our stitching, clean it up on the grinder. But we're in a good spot. All right, we're gonna grind this a little bit with a relatively new 120. We would rather have the sheet be a little bit on the small side so that it's a tight friction fit rather than being too big. And right now this stuff is really thick. So we're gonna take it down mostly on this side, but also a little bit up here.
Now what I've done here is I've taped the welt to a block of wood to try to grind in the distal taper, but I probably wouldn't do that again because the tape gives it a little bit of unevenness. Maybe I would glue it. I don't know. Again, suggestions are welcome. Here I'm just cleaning up some of those inside edges.
All right, that's pretty good. Now we're gonna bring it over here. I'm gonna clean up all the little corners with this tool. I don't know what it's called. If anybody knows, drop it in the comments. It's got the two little forks with the little tiny blade in the middle. Just kind of, it's for rounding over the corners. So basically, we just put it on here and then round over the corners. I got the inside edges here cleaned up. Now it's time for the contact cement. Basically, we're gonna load this up. We're gonna load all of them up, and then we're gonna clamp it together, let it sit overnight, and then we can come back and do the stitching.
From what I understand, the reason you do the contact cement is sort of twofold. One, it lets everything stick into place before you get the stitching, so that you're not fiddling with trying to keep stuff lined up as you're doing the stitching. The second reason is, if your stitching fails, the contact cement is there as kind of a fail-safe. It's kind of like using epoxy and Corby bolts on a knife handle, right? The Corby bolts probably would be good enough on their own, but the epoxy just gives an extra level of security. Now, unfortunately, my cameraman was not able to be with me for my second day of working on this sheath. That's why this has been relegated to a bonus episode instead of a mainline episode. You're about to see in a moment that for the second day, I had to just record everything by myself. So if you share this with a friend, subscribe, like, do all that stuff, help me blow up, maybe I can afford a cameraman who isn't my high school brother. All jokes aside, making videos is hard, and I'm very grateful to him for everything that he contributes. I don't know if you guys know this. He's my cameraman. He also does most of my editing. He's a big part of this channel, so thanks, Adam. Unfortunately, some of these clamps did leave some little indentations in the top and bottom layers of the leather. So if I was doing this again, I would use some kind of buffer between my clamps and my actual sheath, whether it was a piece of sacrificial leather or something like that. I had to struggle a little bit to get the blade out of the clamps, but
It worked.
Kind of.
You only sent the CA glue fine.
Yeah.
it's day 2, we're all glued up, this thing is starting to look like a sheath. First step is to take it to the grinder and clean up all the edges so that everything is flush and even. Grinding leather does not smell great. I don't recommend doing this without some kind of mask or respirator or something. Here it is all squared up. Of course, there's a little bit of burning on the edges, but that's going to get fixed when we do a little bit more sanding and grinding and burnishing and all that stuff. Right now, though, I'm going to use my digital calipers to mark the line that I'm going to try to punch my holes on. I know there is a tool for this, but I don't have one, and this worked just fine in a pinch. It's time to mark my stitch holes. This little 4-pronged stitch hole marker thingy came from Hobby Lobby. Next time I do this, I won't set my tripod up on the same table that I'm hammering on. That's my bad. With all our stitch holes marked, it's time to take it to the drill press and actually turn them into holes. Now, I should not have used a real drill bit here. That was a mistake. I've since learned that you should chuck up a nail and use that to punch your holes rather than a real bit. Before I actually go to do my stitching, though, I'm going to go ahead and clean up all of the edges. I'm doing literally every corner that is on this piece, basically, because I want it to be nice and smooth. I don't want there to be any little sharp spots or hang-ups or anything. Something about using this tool just scratches an itch somewhere deep in my brain. Getting those little stringy pieces off the ends, I love it. Next up, we're going to take this wooden burnishing tool and just rub down all the edges. This is kind of like sanding, I guess, but for leather. I guess it's supposed to make it shiny or something. I don't really know. I'm not a leather worker. Next up, I'm gonna go ahead and dye the edges using some black wood stain. They make leather dye, but it's oil-based, just like this wood stain, and honestly, it worked in a pinch. I'm about a third of the way done with the stitching, and it's kind of rough, but that's what I get for my first sheath, so I'll take it. And here's a time lapse of me doing more stitching. Doing this project gave me a lot of respect for people who do a lot of leather work. I know knife makers that do a custom leather sheath for every single knife they make, and honestly, I can't even imagine. My boss has a leather worker that does sheaths for my production knives, but she has a big fancy leather sewing machine, so she doesn't have to do any of this hand stitching garbage. If I was going to be doing sheaths on a regular basis, I definitely would want some kind of leather sewing machine. But for this, for a gift, for a one-off, I was happy to do it by hand. That's not to say that it didn't take forever, though. I think all in all, the stitching alone took me probably 2.5 or 3 hours, something like that. My threads kept getting tangled up. I kept having to pull stuff apart and redo stuff, and it was a mess. All right, we've got the stitch all the way done. It looks better on this side. But it's fine, it's a gift. And it's my first sheath. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna back stitch like 2.5 stitches and then tie it off. So let's do it. All I'm doing here is stitching backwards over the stitches that I already did. I'm doing 2 holes on the left side and 3 holes on the right side so that the 2 strings come out on the same side and I can then tie them together. Alright, so that's 2.5 stitches through the back. Now we're going to tie it off and snip it. When I was starting my stitching, I was actually really scared about not having enough thread to make it all the way around. And it was really close. I think I had maybe 8 or 10 inches on each side to cut off at the end, which compared to how much I started, that's a pretty good estimate. So there we go, that's the end. I'm still gonna trim that down a little bit. So when I did this, I figured I would leave the white for some contrast, but it's just so wonky on this side that I think I'm just gonna go ahead and dye the string black too. And I think that will look best. Here it is, in all its finished glory, the finished knife and the finished sheath together. Here you can see it's a tight enough friction fit that it's not gonna just slip out. I was really happy with how the fit turned out. But it slips off without very much force, which is pretty much perfect fit for a sheath. I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and I'll see you in the next one.